I'm John. Here I reflect on how our social and cultural perspectives in counseling course has influenced me this term. I have personally gained much in this course by reflecting on who I am, who I'm not, and how those polarities of my identity intersect. The two identities I focused on are my whiteness and maleness. As a white man, I benefit from economic, social, educational, political, and legal advantages that I believe women and people of color cannot take for granted. The main thing that I, as a white person, do not need to know is that I am white. It is possible for a white person to move through life without ever reflecting on their own racial status. This is why white people become so uncomfortable, sometimes angry, when racism is exposed, even when it's distant from them personally. A common reaction to public incidents of racism for white people's denial, which takes many forms, but the function of which is to put racial self-reflection back into its non-conscious state. Being white is not having to be aware that one is white. I have become aware of some aspects of what I do not need to know as a white person during this course. A strong example is my white parenthood. As a white parent, I have never feared that my child would be harmed by the police. Even if she did get in trouble as a teen, which she did not, I'd expect the police to either bring her home or contact me to come get her. That's their job. Still, I trust that they would not hurt her. I suspect that African American parents have a very different experience because recent incidents show them that their children are at risk of being targeted and harmed, even killed by police, possibly only because of their race. To fear that your child may be harmed by the very people who are empowered to protect them is an insidious form of anxiety. The mental health effects of this racial anxiety dilemma is suggested in the work of Smith, Voisin, Yang, and Tung in their 2019 article published in Health Affairs titled Keeping Your Guard Up: Hypervigilance Amongst Urban Residents Affected by Community and Police Violence. The authors observe that hypervigilance is a state of heightened awareness and watchfulness that has been characterized in survivors of trauma and violence. What they found is that exposure to police violence was associated with a 9.8% increase in hypervigilance. Scoring in the highest quartile of hypervigilance is associated with higher systolic blood pressure, which is a key indicator of chronic stress. So, African Americans exposed to police violence, even indirectly, are prone to develop greater than normal indicators of chronic stress, hypervigilance, and higher blood pressure. I suggest that it is likely that African American parents are similarly impacted by high-profile instances of unarmed teens being shot by police and unarmed adults killed or harmed by police. We have seen many such high-profile incidents in the recent decade, enough to give parents nightmares. It's normal for parents to worry about the safety of their children. It is not and should not be normal for African American parents to worry that the officers empowered to protect their children might shoot them instead. That is a fear which African American parents likely bear, while I, and I believe other white parents, do not. It is untenable. It has never crossed my mind in worry that my child may be shot by police for being white. Another of my identities is maleness, which is prominent in my privileged status. As a man, I am at liberty to travel alone and at night with low anxiety about my personal safety as compared to any woman. I believe this. It is true that men are subject to assault, but as a man, it is part of my mentality to be prepared to defend myself and my family. I believe that American culture teaches us that being a protector is part of the male role. One of the sources that heightens my awareness to the meaning of violence against women is Against Our Will by Susan Brown Miller, published in 1975. In the book, her analysis of the history of rape carries a strong conclusion. Quote, "From prehistoric times to present, rape has played a critical function. It is nothing more or less than a conscious process of intimidation by which all men keep all women in a state of fear." Unquote. Brown Miller argues that rape and violence against women is a method of social control employed across cultures and history, the purpose being to maintain the traditional power hierarchy of men over women. This effect can be seen in modern media, such as movies, in which the lone woman is a sufficient symbol for vulnerability. These cases are among several by which I have learned that my identities of privileged status are continually reinforced by my cultural context. My everyday experiences help me to keep these identities in place and unexamined. As a participant in the social norms of the cultural context which support identities of privileged status, I also participate in the structural mechanism of oppression over those who do not share my privileges. Even within my effort and education to raise self-awareness, I have blind spots. For me, a major blind spot to avoid is self-congratulation for gaining awareness of my identities. It is not an accomplishment, it's a challenge. It is not the end of a process, but the beginning. The hard work to come involves how to keep that awareness alive and what to do about it. I believe that my strongest potential for growth in the areas in which my privileged statuses exist is to disrupt them by engaging with people within social contexts where those statuses are weak or absent. My plan is to find and frequent social contexts that are different from my norms. I need to seek out communities of women and people of color so that I may experience directly the lives of people who do not share my experiences regarding race and gender. This, I believe, is a step on the path to gaining the cultural competencies that I need to become an effective counselor. I do not need to be an expert in other cultures, nor should I ever believe that I am such an expert. Rather, I need to become comfortable in engaging with people from backgrounds and cultural contexts that are different from my own. When I can openly share my uncertainties with them and willingness to learn from them, I may be gaining the cultural competencies necessary to authentic counseling with integrity. This course, Dr. Roller, has been a valuable step in my progress along that path. Thank you for that. In good spirit, John.